You tan in summer. You burn if you stay too long. You slap on sunscreen without thinking about why your skin acts this way. Nobody taught you that routine. Nobody had to. It just happens. But here's the reality nobody told you. Did you know that every single human being alive 300,000 years ago had dark skin? Not most of them. Not the vast majority. Every single one. Dark skin was not a variation. It was not one option picked from a catalog. It was the only version of human skin that walked the earth. So what changed? How did a single species end up painted in so many colors? And why does the true answer have nothing to do with what you assume? Let's start with fur. 2 million years ago, your ancestors wore it. Not like modern apes. It was a suffocating, dense coat that worked exactly as designed. It trapped heat. It blocked the scorching sun. It did its job perfectly. Then we started running. Not sprinting. Not short bursts of panic. We chased things until they dropped. Hours of relentless running under the scorched African sky. The problem with a suffocating coat is simple. It is a brilliant insulator. It becomes a death trap the second you need to dump heat fast. Ancestors with thinner coats could sweat. They cooled down. They kept running. The ones wrapped in thick fur overheated. They stopped. They lost. Generation after generation, the fur vanished. And the second it fell away, a new emergency began. Raw flesh was now directly pounded by the equatorial sun for the first time in our history. And UV radiation at those extremes does not just give you a tan. It shreds your DNA. It triggers errors. It kills cells. Your body needed a shield. That barrier was melanin. Cells in the deepest layer of your flesh manufacture it. Picture them building a microscopic wall. Every piece of melanin acts like invisible armor. More armor means darker skin. Darker skin means you survive. Under the relentless glare of the African sun, your ancestors needed every piece of armor they could forge. Evolution drove them down one brutal path. Build more melanin. Build darker skin. Stay alive. By the time humans looked like us, every person walking the earth ran a maximum melanin factory. They did not look this way for culture. They did not do it for tribal identity. They did it because the sun was a killer. Anything less meant death before you could have children. This was the origin point. This was everyone. Now watch the catch. Melanin stops the sun from destroying you. It also stops something you desperately need. UV light striking your skin acts like a spark. It ignites a chemical furnace to forge vitamin D. Forget the word vitamin. Think of it as a master hormone. It hardens your bones. It shapes a mother's pelvis to safely deliver a child. In equatorial Africa, the invisible armor caused zero problems. The sun beat down so violently that enough light punched through the thickest melanin shield. The armor worked. The furnace burned. Life went on. Then, 60,000 years ago, humans marched north. Wet periods turned the Sahara into green corridors. Tribes chased the animal herds. Bitter competition pushed them out into uncharted territory. Survival forced them onto frozen soil. And as they pushed up, the physics of survival shattered. Under sun-starved skies, the sun hangs miserably low on the horizon. The weak rays fight through a massive wall of thick atmosphere. The specific light needed for the chemical furnace simply vanishes. Winter up there drags on for 6 grueling months. Meaningful hormone production stops completely. Dark armor repels 90% of all UV light. Down in equatorial Africa, that remaining 10% was a mighty flood. But up in northern Europe, the sun itself is 1/10 of its African strength. Your dark skin now lets through maybe 1% of the original power. That is not enough. The body knows instantly. The furnace stalls. Calcium refuses to absorb. Bones that must harden stay horribly soft. A child growing up in this cold does not look sick at first. They eat food. They run around. They seem perfectly fine, but deep inside, a silent killer is at work. The skeleton twists. The pelvis bends wrong. This is where the hormone stopped being a health fact and became a ruthless evolutionary filter. Women lacking it grew deformed pelvises. They could not deliver. They died in childbirth. Their dark-skinned genes died with them. Women with a fraction less armor let a sliver more light in. They built straight bones. They survived childbirth. They raised children who inherited their slightly lighter skin, generation after generation. The scythe swung. The same filter delivered the exact same result. But here's a piece of the puzzle that makes no sense. If this filter slaughtered people every single generation for 60,000 years, dark skin should have vanished from Northern Europe in a blink. But the bones tell a different story. 10,000 years ago, a man died in a drainage ditch in Somerset, England. Scientists read his DNA in 2018. Most Europeans back then still possessed dark brown to black skin. 50,000 years of brutal selection pressure. The skin barely faded. Why? Look at their food. Hunters did not rely on the sun to build that master hormone. They ate bloody meat. They cracked open animal liver. They consumed eggs and fat-rich fish. A hunter surviving a freezing northern winter packed enough vitamin D into their body through their mouth. The melanin armor did not need to fade. The food picked up the slack. Then, the world shifted. 10,000 years ago, farming crept out of the Near East into Europe. The dietary safety net snapped abruptly. Early farmers stopped eating wild game. They chewed on wheat, barley, and hollow grain. Farming tied them down. They anchored their roots to the fields. Hunting demanded a mobile life that a farmer could never afford. For the tribes living far from the ocean, their meals became an endless bowl of porridge. And grain holds zero vitamin D. The one backup system keeping dark-skinned humans alive in the freezing north evaporated. Suddenly, the selection pressure became a nightmare. With the food barren, the hormone could only come from the sky. And the sun was weak. And the skin was dark. The filter swung its blade harder than ever before. And then, an accidental spark ignited. Somewhere in the Middle East or Southern Europe, a biological copying error happened deep inside a single cell. One letter changed in a gene called SLC24A5. One single letter out of 3 billion in the human code. This typo shut down melanin production by 30 to 40%. One child was born noticeably lighter than the rest of their tribe, and they thrived because of it. More light pierced their skin. The furnace burned hotter. Bones grew strong. The pelvis formed perfectly. Children lived. Grandchildren carried the typo forward. Within roughly 150 to 250 generations. Just a few thousand years, that single error swept through the European farming tribes. Not because of a cultural choice, not because anyone wanted it, simply because those carrying the typo survived, and the ones who lacked it silently faded away. Here's the reality that should shatter everything you think you know. That exact typo, SLC24A5, is almost entirely missing in East Asian bloodlines. Yet, East Asians living in the north also grew lighter skin. They just achieved it through blind luck, striking different genes entirely. A completely different molecular road ending at the same destination. The environment built a wall. Evolution smashed through it, then backed up and smashed through it again, using totally different tools across vast distances. Pale skin is not one single event. It is a biological trick the human body invented at least twice. This means skin color is not ancient. It is not permanent. It is not fundamental. It is recent. It is a fluid canvas. It is entirely controlled by two simple things: how far you walked from the equator and what you put on your plate for dinner. The man from the Somerset ditch possessed dark skin and piercing blue eyes. His descendants, 400 generations down the line, look absolutely nothing like him. Not because of their soul, because of where they settled and what they started planting. Your skin color is not your identity. It is simply your ancestors' answer to a brutal geography problem. And it took less time to reshape than you think.